Alright, today I'm going to teach you how to start constructing your slab project. Once again, I'll show you the difference between a fresh slab and one that's stiffened a little bit. This one I just rolled out, and you can see when I hold it up, it just flops straight over. It's too wet. And the reason that's bad is because as we try to build our walls with them, it'll dent and buckle really easily, and you'll just kind of fight with it. The only time when you'd want a fresh slab is if you were doing a really tight corner on something and it seems like your slab is cracking. So for example, this project right here, I might want to just use a regular slab, not stiffened right here, because a stiffened slab might crack. But everywhere else, I'd probably want to use a stiff slab. So this is what I'm going to show you how to do today. Start putting your walls together so that it makes sense. This is a stiffened slab. This one you can see is still soft, still flexible, but doesn't completely flop over. So that's what we want. The first thing you're going to do after you kind of check and make sure your slabs are in good shape is trim them down to the exact size of your template. So for this one, you can see it's not as long as my template is, but that's okay. I just want to trim the thickness here, or the width there, and get it to the right size. I'm going to move the camera up so you can see what I'm doing. When I trim these, I want to make sure that my knife is straight up and down. I don't want to have it at an angle one way or the other. And if you struggle cutting these with the knife just along the template, don't be afraid to grab a ruler and lay the ruler along the edge of that paper. And again, make sure you reclaim all these little pieces. You'll need them later. Okay, the other thing I would advise is, as we build this, our goal is to just go straight up with our wall, but it doesn't always happen. It doesn't always go exactly straight up. So sometimes when you put your top piece on, it may lose just a little bit of the detail of what you want. So my advice would be to build it upside down. So take your template the way it goes, and take your slab and flip it over like so. The other thing you want to make sure you always do is build on a project board, and make sure you have one of these sheet covers to work from. If you don't, it's really a pain to try to get this thing unstuck from the board, or to try to pick it up off the table and move it to your project board. So I've got these pieces trimmed down to the right height, and I made sure that they have nice square corners. So the next thing I'm going to do is teach you how to put the walls on here. A couple things that you always must do when you put your wall on here: it always goes on top of the slab, never on the side sitting on the board like this. We always want to make sure that it goes right on top. Next thing I'm going to do is just try to get this slab close to the right length. So I'm going to cut it a little long, but it'll make it easier to work with. So when I cut it, if I stand it up like this, and if my ruler is sitting flat on the table, that will always make sure that that is cut to a nice 90-degree corner. So I'll get rid of this piece for now. So this is always going to go on top right here. If it hangs over the edge a little bit right here, not a big deal. I can always come back and trim that up. My goal is to get this to match my design. So this has a gentle little curve there, so I just want to make sure that it matches from here to there, and it's going to sit on there like so. The next thing I need to worry about is getting another one in there. So I'm going to show you how to miter a corner to get two slabs to come together. So this is the remainder of that slab that I had just trimmed to size. I'm going to go ahead and trim it just a little bit more, just so I have a decent sized piece to work with for my demo. So this piece needs to add on right here. As you can see, they don't match up really very well, so I need to miter a corner. This one hangs over the edge a little bit anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and trim that one down to size. Again, best thing to do here is use the ruler, and you can, if you don't want to cut it while it's standing up, you can always mark it while it's standing up and then move it to cut it. So that will cut it to length. And that should sit on there nice and neat. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how to get these two to come together. We don't want to leave a big gap right there. What we need to do is cut these so that they fit straight together. So what I want to do is transfer the measure or the direction of this line, the edge of this one, to this one. So basically what I have to do is cut this one parallel. So if you envision taking the knife, moving it straight over, this line is now parallel to this edge. So I'm going to cut straight down on this piece, get rid of that little bit, and now this piece should slide over. That's another reason why it's good to cut these just a little long to start with, because you can see it was a little long, now it fits right there to that edge. So that's how you miter the corners together. So you'll work your way around. You'll see that some pieces will be shorter, some pieces will be longer. What you want to do is always make sure that they've got good connection. So this piece would overlap so that they butt up against each other like this. I would not want to leave a gap like that. I always want to make sure that they're right up next to each other with a good surface contact. Okay, so that's how you'll put your walls on. I showed you how to get a corner together, but really what you want to do is make sure that every time you put one wall on, that you take 3 steps in order to make sure that it's put together well. So I'm going to show you how to do that now. First thing I'm going to do is slip and score. When we talked about slipping and scoring with our coil project, I told you to kind of go easy on it. This project, because the clay is dried out a little bit, stiffened up a little bit, we want to go a little heavier on the slipping and the scoring. So scored here, scored there. Put some slip down. And again, I'm going pretty heavy on it. I want it to squeeze out when I put it together. So I'll sit this straight on top of there and just kind of wiggle it down into place. And then what I'm going to do is flip it around and look at it from the outside. So the outside, I've got to do one thing to it to get it stuck together, and that's what we call Frankenstein stitching. And the reason we call that is because they're big and they're ugly, but they get the job done. So a Frankenstein stitch is done with your wood knife. You use the point of it, and I'm going to go across that line where that joint is. And you can see they're pretty deep and they're pretty ugly. They should go across the line where that joint was. My next thing then is that I want to kind of use some of that extra slip that kind of smeared out and just kind of go back and fill those in. By the time I fill those in, it's going to lock those two pieces of clay together. So you'd spend a little bit more time on that. The next thing I've got to do, so that was the second thing. We always do that on the outside. The next thing I'm going to do is on the inside here, put a coil. My goal is to round that corner out. So in some cases, if you had enough slip squeeze out, you should be good to go. If you feel like it's dry back there, go ahead and smear a little slip in there. It just kind of helps make sure you don't end up with any air bubbles behind your coil that you're going to put in there. The temptation is to grab these little scraps that you cut off of your slab for your coils. Don't use that. Get some nice soft clay for your coil. As far as size goes, you want about a pencil-sized coil. And I'm going to drop it in there like so. And then my goal is to round it out. So I'm going to take half of it, mush it into the bottom. I'm going to take the other half while I'm bracing the wall and mush it into the side there. And then just smooth it out a little bit while I'm here. It's easier to smooth it out now than it is to wait till later. Okay, so that's what I want. When I'm done, I should have like a skateboard ramp. It should be nice and rounded in there so that it makes this point very strong. So we've got that put together. Now let's talk about how to put our next piece in. We already got it cut. And again, I don't want you to go around and cut all the pieces, fit them on there, and then try to go back and slip and score. I want you to do it as you go. So this piece is going to go right here. Sometimes it's necessary to get rid of a little bit of that coil that you added on. For like right here, I won't be able to put a slab right up next to that because I got that coil sitting in there. So sometimes it's necessary to get rid of a little bit of it so that it'll fit in there. Okay, so this piece is going to go here. Just like the other one, I need to slip and score. So I'm going to score this side and across the bottom. This is the piece that fits there, so I'm going to score up the side wall and the bottom like that, and go heavy on the slip. Smoothing it out a little bit as you go. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to show you is that we always say put a coil on the inside and Frankenstein stitch the outside, but sometimes a corner like this one acts a little strange. So even though this is the outside, I had to put a coil in here, and even though this is the inside, I had to Frankenstein that piece. So sometimes what is on the outside acts like an inside corner. So that's where you would put a coil here and Frankenstein stitch the outside. Now that you're building, a couple things. You've got 2 project boards. Make sure you use both of them. You can build on one, store your extra slabs on the other. At this point, you want to make sure you're getting rid of all the newspaper because it'll continue to dry your slabs out, and you want to make sure that everything is covered up. It doesn't hurt either to, after you start building this piece, to give it a little spray after you get it started put together. Go team!